next, we have Mike Grimm. He is the Senior Program Manager with the City of Carlsbad, and he works with their Climate Action Plan. He's worked with the city for over 30 years doing land use planning, housing policy, airport compatibility planning, habitat conservation, and now the climate action planning. So he works with a team of dedicated employees in implementing the climate action plan and furthering Carlsbad's sustainability goals. So Mike, I'm going to let you take things away.
Well, I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. So I just want to talk to you about the City of Carlsbad's electric vehicle initiatives. Presentation, just want to do a little bit of background and talk about the climate action plan actions that really got the city involved in electric vehicles. A little bit about and these include the EV Infrastructure Ordinance, the city EV's charging station installations, charging rates and enforcement, a charging station siting study that were completed phase 1 or embarked in phase 2. And then last but not least, the city's fleet conversion plans. So as I'm sure a bunch of you know, Carlsbad has a lot of EVs. The way we track it is through the CVRP data. The rebate statistics are obviously not everyone gets a rebate. So it's not complete, and then people may move in, may move out. But as you can see, 2018 was a gangbuster. We had like 312 battery electric vehicles, 157 plug-in hybrids, and 6 fuel cells. So the 2020 data is only through September. It's kind of dropping off a little bit, but it's still very encouraging there. So obviously there's some infrastructure from the residents of Carlsbad. Not everyone can charge at home, or that's not necessarily convenient. You want to provide those opportunities. So in the Climate Action Plan, it was approved with our general plan update in 2015. It had 5 strategy areas. The one I want to focus on tonight is transportation. For transportation, there's essentially 2 greenhouse gas reduction strategies. One is to try and reduce the number of single occupancy vehicles, get people out of their cars, do alternative mode shifts, public transit. But the other part is reducing the tailpipe emissions. And obviously that gets into low or zero emission vehicles. So in the CAP, we have a variety of measures, and Measure L is the one that deals with electric vehicles. And I just want to touch on 5 of the actions that are in there now. One is adopt an ordinance requiring residential charging station installation. The next was preparing a community-wide charging station siting plan, and then installing EV charging stations where appropriate. It also mentions conducting a PV to EV pilot project. And then with regarding to the city operations, increasing the proportion of low and zero emission vehicles in the fleet. So with regard to our EV infrastructure ordinance, it was passed back in spring of '89, or excuse me, spring of 2019, and it went into effect. It requires all new non-residential buildings to have approximately 5% of their spaces EV capable, which means that there's panel capacity, there's conduit running to the running to the site, and then another 5% of those you have to go all the way through to being installed, putting in a pedestal ready for charging. I say approximately because it's in a table with a sliding scale. For new single-family residential and major renovations, we're requiring that the homeowner put in one EV ready space, which is panel capacity, conduit, and a plug, a receptacle. And then for new multifamily residential and major renovations that have significant site work, we're requiring, we're the same as the non-residential. The reason we put significant site work in there is that you could have what qualifies as a major renovation of an apartment building or condo, but not really be ripping up a lot of parking lot or any of the site work. And it would just be cost prohibitive to have people go back in and redo the site. So as far as public charging installations, we've got a number of them. We've got, at these 5 sites. Our first one was Alga Norte, and that was built with the park back in 2014. And then Stagecoach and State Street parking lots were through the EV Go program, where they install the infrastructure and then you just buy pedestals elsewhere and then you own everything right off the bat. Pine Avenue and Aviar Community Park were self-funded. We built those along with the park construction for Pine Avenue Park shortly after Stagecoach and State came in. And then Aviar Community Park is our most recent one. We're obviously looking at new and expanded locations. Most recently, we've been working with April. Thank you so much for all the help in exploring Cal EVIP and whether we can use that rebate program. I can talk a little bit. I'm happy to answer more questions about that, but I can tell you this last budget cycle, we were supposed to go lean and mean because the revenues were reduced for COVID. So we didn't have anything in our budget for a public charging station installation in this year. That didn't stop us from still trying to get reservations in the Cal EVIP. We figured that was tough. And then if we actually had the rebates available, then we might be able to go to council and say, hey guys, you know, we can do this at a much reduced cost, similar to what we did for Stagecoach and State Street. Hopefully that would be an incentive to go. So that's still a work in progress. Keep your fingers crossed on that. So once we got, once we started, you know, when we had Alga Norte, it was free. And we just said, hey, there's only a couple ports there. It's fine. What's the big deal? And then when we started getting other sites, we said, well, we better start looking at charging fees. Don't want to go to do a gift of public funds and such. So when the council adopted a charging fee back in July 2017, it was based upon operating and capital costs along with some other parameters, and we came up with 35 cents per kilowatt hour. We applied that to the Alga Norte site, and much to the disappointment of a local resident who had apparently been charging there for free for quite some time. So if that resident's in the audience here, I'd be happy to chat with you. So also, most recently in 2019, we started getting a lot of, naturally, our State Street Park place is very, very popular. And we started getting complaints about icing there and over parking. Looking at the charge point data, we had one resident that was pretty much regularly charging there overnight, every night. So they adopted a EV parking enforcement ordinance. It's essentially the California's vehicle code requirements that it just allows us to enforce those on a local basis. And it's for any public street parking or city-owned or operated off-street parking. The ordinance didn't set the time limit, so the time limit and the design of the signs and everything was set by the traffic engineer. So there's 2 hours and all of those are posted. And thank you very much to Simon for keeping us on our toes and making sure that those got installed. So with regard to analyzing where would be good places to fill in more charging stations, we conducted a charging station siting study back in 2018. And what we did was we mapped all the existing sites that were existing sites and then future service areas that were based on driving distance. So the existing were the ones that were already there, future were the ones that were already planned. And then we did a half-mile, mile, and a mile-and-a-half driving distance to each of those. And then identified some other sites that are potential areas that would be served and fill in those gaps. We were just looking at publicly owned parking lots and then commercial parking lots because we didn't want to presume that a private person would be willing to allow public charging on their site, even though some folks do. So we can update this a little bit. We can put Aviara in there, which would definitely fill in a little more in the southwest. But as you can see, we still have gaps in the northwest or northeast and southeast. And this map, I'm happy to provide any of the materials that are being shown, and I'll give a PDF of the slideshow to Elaine for distribution. But this was also presented in our Climate Action Plan annual report a couple years ago. So as we know, one of the challenges in retrofitting EV charging into a site is all of the site work that you need to do. Sometimes the locations that are primed for EV parking are far distance from the transformer or the breaker in the building. That means long runs through asphalt or concrete. Sometimes there's not capacity in either the building breaker, or even in the upstream SDG&E infrastructure. And so the city wanted to explore what would it take to do an off-grid design that can address some of those cost challenges. So we sent out a request for information back in February 2020. I was actually at a meeting down at Cleantech San Diego, an innovation network meeting. Met some of the folks that were going to be responding to that RFI. They were very excited about everything. We were talking about scalability. We were talking about opportunities for DC to DC charging. We wanted to, if you wanted to amalgamate a PV and a battery and an EV charging company all together, put together some package, that'd be great. And then we got hit by COVID. So unfortunately, we only got 3 responses, and they were pretty much off the shelf products that those companies already had, rather than looking for something creative. So hopefully we'll get some more responses when we re-solicit that. But the purpose of this is to really take a look at some of the sites that we're going to be retrofitting, and see if it would be more cost beneficial to do a PV to EV off-grid alternative, or allow more flexibility than it would be to do a standard grid connected one. So I mentioned that we're in the second phase of our siting study. We hired S-Curve Strategies. So thank you again, April, for helping us do some site analysis of a variety of sites. And what we're going to do is compare those costs of the PV to EV and see if we can actually get some more cost-effective installations. So now turning to the fleet and workplace charging installations. This was an interesting process to go through. It's kind of chicken and egg. Why would we install EV charging stations if we don't have any fleet EVs? Or why would we buy EVs if we don't have a place to charge them? And so we were kind of in a spot there. Luckily, the Electrify America program came along, and we were able to use that program to install 10 ports at the Faraday Center, and also 10 ports at the Carlsbad City Library. That supports our fleet conversion, and it also, we got some really good feedback from employees. There was a number of employees that had longer commutes. They weren't able to get from their home to work and back without charging, and having that workplace charging, even at that 35 cents a kilowatt hour, was a benefit to them. So in addition to this, we literally just submitted an application for SDG&E's Power Your Drive for Fleet, which is for class 2 through 8 vehicles, medium duty, heavy duty trucks and vans. And that's really going to facilitate the transition and conversion of some of those other products. So hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that program. And then with regard to the actual fleet conversion, we now have a total of 20 plug-in hybrid EVs. So one battery operated, our battery EV, and then 19 plug-in hybrids. And we're also looking for more conversion as the opportunity comes along. And then we also have a contract now to get a total of 35 police patrol hybrids. Now they're not electric, not full electric or battery or plug-in, but they still are considerably more efficient and reduce the GHG footprint by quite a bit. So we were studying, we've got 12 of them retrofitted now and are ready to go, outfitted, because you have to put in all the police stuff. And since February 2020, those 12 vehicles have already saved 33,000 gallons of fuel. So we're going forward to council in March to request to participate in a grant program that would track and all this data and be able to provide that for folks that we can really highlight the success of these hybrids. So that's what I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions, and once again, apologize for the lack of technological prowess on this presentation.
No problem. Thank you so much, Mike. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Dave Crow here.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Hey, yeah, thanks. Great presentation, and it's great to see Carlsbad putting in so many charges all over the place to fill in that that safety net of charging capability. I had a question about sharing chargers. In that, have you personally seen any solutions? Because it takes so long to charge, so you have to, finish your charge, and then someone else has to know that that plug is now open. Has Carlsbad done anything to help people get through that protocol or that coordination of and handoff of the plugs such that you get better utilization of all your chargers?
We haven't, and I am definitely aware of that. I remember, I think his name was Josh Plinkton. He used to be with SDG, and he actually devised a little sign that you could put in your window to say, "Hey, feel free to unplug me by a certain time." But we haven't gotten down to that level. It's a city. Our first one was the stick. Put up the sign and disincentivize people that way.
This is Temo. EV Match is another vendor we looked at for multi housing residential. They EV Match, Will Trezell from Colorado actually was their representative, and they offer an app where you can like the HOA can charge or not charge for the power, and then people who log into the app can basically reserve the spot, reserve the time, and pay right through their app. So you can calendar your charging sessions, and it's a pretty cool program. Unfortunately, we applied for the Cal EVIP for a condo complex, and they soaked up the money within probably like 5 minutes of the apps being open. So next time when they refresh the funding, we'll apply faster, maybe with some help, multiple people trying to apply it, immediately when they open the floodgates. But yeah, EV Match. So if you look those guys up, they have solutions for charging, shared charging over.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. And I see a few other questions in the chat, so I can help you with those.
And Leslie, I think Leslie Gomez, you've got your hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Sorry. Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The thing I wanted to ask you is, where is the Faraday Center? Because I live very close to Faraday.
Okay. Yeah. So the Faraday Center is located just not far from the intersection of Faraday and College. So if you're heading,
is that all the chargers is that all the chargers that are up there on Van Allen by Thermo Fisher?
No, those are charge point chargers, and I believe those are charge point. I don't know if they're available for public or not. I don't think so. Yeah, I didn't put them on our public map. Unless I see a bunch of folks, in Charge Hub or something having listing experiences, I'm reluctant to count those as public when we're trying to look at a density kind of mapping. No, we're if you were at the intersection of College and Faraday, and you started heading towards the golf course and down towards Cannon, we're just before it starts going downhill. Now the Electrify America program, though, because it was funded through the Volkswagen Fund, they entered into a deal that said you can't use them for public charging. Well, you could, but then there would be a surcharge on it that would make it cost prohibitive. So our charging at Faraday and at the Dove Library are only for fleet, and then we allow city employees to do it, but we charge them the going rate.
Okay.
So those are restricted as well. Even if you had an account with Green Lots, you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. I have neighbors with EVs that don't have in-garage chargers yet.
Well, and that's why I was interested in hearing all the stories, and Simon can attest to this. We've had this conversation, I think maybe even with April. I live in a house that was built in the late 40s. When I've had to do electrical work, I found copper wire with the fuzzy little caterpillar stuff over it, and it's not grounded. So yeah, I don't think I have a safe at-home EV charging alternative either.
Yeah, as someone mentioned, EV Match is a great way for people that don't have home charging to possibly be able to charge at someone's house that lives close to them. It's kind of like Airbnb for charging. So you typically will get charged just the exact rate that they're paying, or that rate plus a small surcharge. It's up to the homeowner which they choose.
Wow, that's
And
great.
then, yeah, we have another question. And it was about why not battery electric vehicles for the police after successful deployments in Bargersville, Indiana, Fremont, California, Ontario, and other places. Lower
Yeah.
operating costs and greater uptime with use of BEVs.
Yes, I agree. I think what happened was the conversation for those started a while ago, and then my guess is that PD was not comfortable with the battery electric vehicles. So it was we were actually, I mean, because each department's responsible for their own budgets, and so some departments are flat off the back, they don't want to go EV, at which we're, well, we just tell them you have to. But there usually is a negotiation between our fleet manager and the departments on what we can do. We were able to successfully tell some of the inspectors that they needed to start getting some plug-in hybrids, even though they weren't this big beefy truck that they can roll onto a job site with. And so unfortunately, there's still some stigma, I think, unfortunately, in electric vehicles as well. But I will certainly pass that on to the fleet manager and let them know that after this pilot, there's alternatives, because we've got more than that many squad cars.
Excellent. And then another question is, what does Carlsbad charge as a permit fee to install a home charger?
That's a good question, and I can get back to you on that. I unfortunately do not know, but I will certainly let you know.
All right, and then one more that I see is, does Carlsbad have any plans to install DC fast chargers?
Yes, and we would love to. That's actually, so that gets to the Cal EVIP part. We are potentially eligible for rebates for some DC fast charging at both State Street, which is an existing double pedestal parking area, and then also potentially at Ocean Street parking, which is over there by Offshore Surf Shop. We think those are going to be really high volume areas. They're areas that people can come and get a quick charge, still experience, but don't have to stay downtown or stay at the beach all the time. So those were the areas that we were targeting. And so, yeah, like I said, keep your fingers crossed on that.
Great.
And I did see another question about how about Envision for off-grid charging from Leslie. And they were one of the three folks that replied to our RFI. And we've already been in touch with them quite a bit. They're very good at marketing their product and stuff. So yeah, that's definitely one of the considerations. We just wanted to see what else was out there and if there's anything super creative that folks can do that's scalable rather than the portable versions. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you being here tonight and sharing all of this information with us. Yeah, great information. So thanks
Great.
again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.
All right.